Welcome to this hearing via Zoom of the Local Historic District Commission. This is purpose of the LHDC is to aid property owners and the town in preserving and protecting the distinctive characteristics and architecture of buildings and places significant in the history of Amherst. Tonight, we're having a hearing about the newly proposed East Amherst Local Historic District, and we're also here to talk about design guidelines that are being developed by Chris Skelly, who is here with us tonight. Um, let's take roll call just to begin. Bruce,
I'm here.
Rita,
Here.
Nicole,
Here.
Steve,
Here.
uh, Chris, you're not a member, but you're here. And Walker is our leader in charge. And I'm here, Nancy Ratner. So we welcome everybody who's come to this meeting. And I think this is just an opportunity for people to ask questions and to hear answers. So let's open it up to questions.
Oh,
Well, I mean, should Chris do his PowerPoint presentation to start?
We can do
yeah.
that.
And Nancy,
Yes.
um, I think it's a good idea for the chair of committees to read the attendees, it being a public meeting. And if it was a public meeting, as it used to be, you would go into a room and you would see everybody there. I know we on the planning board make a habit of doing that. And before you ask for public comment, it would be nice for the people in the audience to know who's there.
I think if you click on the participants, well, I guess no.
No, the attendees cannot do that.
Oh, okay.
I'd be happy to read the list of the people who are attending. It's Andrew, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name, Andrew DeCervo, Hetty Startup, Hilda Greenbaum. We've got an iPad and an iPhone, unidentified. Janet McGowan, Joel Greenbaum, Judith Luddy, Lyle Dennett, another iPad, Sarah Woodbury, Sid Sif, and Susanna. There may be other people who will be coming and joining us, but I think it is a good idea for Chris to begin by making a presentation so that people know what we're really talking about. So are you prepared to do that, Chris?
Sure, I am. Yep.
Okay, take it away.
Okay. Okay, so it's going to be a quick presentation about the East Amherst proposed local historic district. It's been a process, and I'm just going to go over a little bit about how we've got to the point we are right now. I'm going to explain what local historic districts are, what that means, and a little bit about my project that I was involved with in terms of the research project in researching properties within the East Amherst area. All right. All right. So East Amherst is actually currently on the National Register of Historic Places already. So it is a National Register district. We could call it a historic district already, but importantly, it is not a local historic district, and that's the key distinction. So a National Register district, also known as a historic district, is primarily an honorary designation through the National Park Service. And so ultimately it's not very effective at protecting historic resources. Local historic districts, on the other hand, are very effective at protecting historic resources. They are the kind of historic districts that are established through local government. So they are established through the local democratic process. And things that are typically reviewed in a local historic district include things like an alteration to a building, an alteration to a structure. If you're going to demolish a building, that would get reviewed by the Amherst Historic District Commission. Additions would be reviewed as a compatibility to the district. New buildings, new structures, all those kinds of things are reviewed within the local historic district. It is absolutely under state law limited to what's visible from the public way. So if it's not visible from the public way, there isn't any review possible with it in a local historic district in the state of Massachusetts. So Amherst already has two local historic districts. There's the Dickinson Local Historic District and then the North Prospect Lincoln Sunset Local Historic District. Other areas of Amherst, such as East Amherst, have very, very little protection from alterations, demolitions, and incompatible development. So they are not protected well at all in the way that Dickinson and North Prospect districts are. Just to give you a little example of how things might work, this is a property within the Lincoln Sunset District. And as I understand it, this is a building within the district that had reached a point where the building just couldn't be salvaged, not feasible to save it, the building on the left-hand side. And by having a local historic district, the new construction that was put up in its place met the expectations of the neighborhood that way. So without that local historic district on McClellan Street, the replacement could have been a substantial concern for what was put there. Doesn't necessarily mean certainly doesn't mean new construction needs to replicate a historic property, but that is a possibility within a local historic district, but certainly not a requirement by any means. But it does.
If I could,
Yeah,
Chris, this is we've done this 4 times, so this is where I jump in for just a
sure,
second.
jump in. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is like our poster child of what can happen. This project, was submitted to us, and the commission approved it, gave it a certificate of appropriateness, at the first meeting that it was presented to us, and within like 6 to 8 months, it was up and running. And I just wanted to say, it's a student rental. And so we're not opposed to student housing. That isn't what this is about. And also, this property is going to be putting up an ADU, which is allowed by right. So this is not LHD is not anti-development; it's pro-preservation. Okay, I'm sorry, Chris. I always have to jump in here. Sorry.
All right. Thanks for the ads there. All right. Okay, so I can move on from there. I think Steve covered everything there. So East Amherst is under consideration as a local historic district, like those two other districts in Amherst. And that's because it contains many very early intact properties that do an amazing job about telling the history of the early history of Amherst and its growth and development over time. As a consultant on working on this proposed local historic district, one of my tasks was to do some research on the current properties that are in the district. And so I began researching properties within the East Amherst area. And the research on these properties was often last done in the 1980s, so it was pretty out of date or maybe entirely incomplete. So being 40 years old and just things weren't fully done as well back then. So you can see this is a good example right here, that these two sections of this research on this property on Main Street, these sections of the form, the research form, or what we would call an inventory form, were not even filled out. So it's completely blank for the architectural significance and the historical significance section there. Lots of these other forms that had been done in the 1980s were, even if they had some information there, it really wasn't adequate, and lots of missing areas as well. So part of my task was to research properties in East Amherst, update the photographs, provide a better locus map, write an architectural description, and do the research on the history of the property as well. So I went back in the deeds as far as manageable. So deeds are a wonderful way to research properties. They don't tell you everything that you would like to know, but they are these looking through old deeds can be a really fascinating look back at a property in terms of who owned that property. Um, so they're very useful in that way. But they don't necessarily give you all some of the other interesting aspects of like who lived there and what were their occupations and things like that. So for those kinds of things, we looked at some other sources that might be out there. Amherst has some wonderful maps from the 1800s. They're really interesting, and you can see here where they often have the owner or the business that was at that location, and can really tell you a lot about the neighborhood just from those labels right there. And then a map that came a little bit later, more in the 18 later, a little bit later in the 1800s, is the one that's on the right hand side. That one had even a little bit more information in terms of names and more information in terms of uses, businesses, and things like that. So having those two maps together really gives you great information about how buildings were used over time, who lived there, maybe who the owners were. That might be a great way to compare the deed and the map to make sure that the research is on track. They still don't really tell you everything that you would like to know because you really, I think what's most interesting with these is sort of some of the biographical information about who lived there. And so we might look to things like these city directories right here. So this is a directory from 1869, and it doesn't have street address numbers or anything like that at this point. But if you have some names available, maybe from the deeds or from the maps, you can look these up, and it will actually tell you occupations and wonderful things like that. So these old directories, I like to think of them as sort of the phone books before there were phones. They had the list of the list of the names right there. Um, in alphabetical order. As the directories came into the 20th century, they often would actually have a listing by the street address numbers as well. But early on, of course, they didn't have street numbers, so they didn't do things like that. Another thing that often was getting used was newspapers. So those were been terrific in terms of some newspaper articles. I'll give you a couple of examples of those coming up. Um, Um, this is an interesting article here about this property on Main Street, and at one point it was in really poor condition and was threatened with demolition. And another source that I used quite a bit in doing this research was uh, the archives at the library. So they're a wonderful resource for finding wonderful photographs and letters and all kinds of things. Um, within the folders and materials that they have there. So this is a photograph from the East Street School in 1928 with the children that attended the school at that point. So wonderful little record about that school there. East Amherst section of Amherst is notably significant for its intact collection of buildings and landscapes that convey that early history and development of Amherst. Buildings and landscapes found in East Amherst really reflect the commerce, occupations, industries, institutions that took place during the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries. And so that's why it was listed on the National Register of Historic Places way back in 1986. Several houses in East Amherst actually remain from very early Amherst settlement. And so they include the Noah Dickinson House at 743 Main Street, as well as the Daniel Kellogg House at 76 Northeast Street. The Dickinson House dates from about 1754, and the Daniel Kellogg House from 1758. And they really stand out because they're just remarkably intact properties. Very prominent building within the East Amherst area is the Baggs Tavern at 6 Southeast Street. Also dates from around that period. operated for a tavern for many years by John Baggs during the first half of the 1800s. Has an interesting history of in the early 1900s that it went through a restoration effort, was turned into a museum at that point, an antique shop, and then at some point later became housing. And in the 1970s, suffered a horrible fire and was vacant for years. And certainly threatened with demolition. You can see the photo there in that newspaper article that I found, just showing the poor condition that the house was in. And newspaper article certainly made it sound like the building was not long for this world at all. But then a new owner came along, and so that was really interesting aspect of this history of this property. A new owner came along, purchased the property, and decided to restore it. And so in this newspaper article below, the owner is accepting a preservation award from the Amherst Historical Commission. This is the Ebenezer Mattoon House at 58 Southeast Street, which dates from 1782. The building was constructed by Ebenezer Mattoon following his extensive service within the Revolutionary War. And from its earliest European settlement to the mid-19th century, East Amherst was the institutional and residential hub of Amherst. The primary early occupation was farming with crops, including hay, grain, and apples. And at the center of the community was the Second Congregational Church. By 1783, the Congregational Church was constructed here in East Amherst. However, this building was dismantled, and then a later larger Second Congregational Church constructed in 1839 to accommodate all the new arrivals to the village. And so this building at 742 Main Street, now the Jewish community of Amherst, remains a prominent focal point at the center of East Amherst Village with its prominent spire. Many homes in East Amherst were constructed during the middle of the 1800s as the area grew in prosperity. Manufacturing, straw hat manufacturing, lots of other manufacturing taking place in East Amherst. Additional commerce. That's really the period of major growth for East Amherst. And so you see a lot of these houses that look like this that are done in the Greek Revival style. And that really represents very typical of that mid-1800s residential construction. One of the things that's really interesting about East Amherst is seeing the distinctions between the homes in Amherst. So these properties on Main Street that aren't even that far apart from each other tell two very, very distinct stories. On the left, it is a story of wealth necessary to construct this dwelling. And then on the right is workers' housing. So workers' housing for the many people employed in the manufacturing and trades found in East Amherst at that time. Another aspect that's interesting about East Amherst are the collection of brick homes here, all dating from the 1800s, but really an excellent, amazing collection of brick homes in East Amherst, all dating around that mid 1800s time period. So we can definitely find buildings in East Amherst that have been altered over the decades. Some have been covered in asbestos siding or vinyl siding. Some have had their porches enclosed. At the former school, up in the upper left there, you can see where the front entrance was altered by enclosing the recessed entryway and removing the stairs. Yet even with all these alterations, the buildings still very much tell that story of East Amherst and the growth and development of the town of Amherst as a whole. So really, still really a significant area, even with some of those alterations that have taken place over time. All right, and that is my presentation. So Nancy, however you would like to take it from here with questions.
Well, Nancy, could I just say a few words? I can't hear her.
Yeah, she's muted.
Nancy's
You're on mute.
muted. Sorry. Yeah, I wanted to thank Chris for his work and thank the town of Amherst for supporting that work through a community preservation grant. Steve.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention a few things. First of all, I just wanted to mention the scope of of this proposed district. It's approximately 50 properties. Most of them are in the National Historic Registry. We tried to, stay as much contained as we possible. This town staff asked us to include 3 or 4 more properties, which we did. Also, yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that this was until the arrival of the railroad, which shifted commerce to the town center. The East Amherst Historical District was Amherst's principal civic, commercial, and industrial area. In other words, this is the oldest part of Amherst. The other thing I wanted to mention is we're not NIMBYs. None of the members of our commission have interest, live in the proposed district, or have interest in the proposed district. And this study was undertaken and launched at the suggestion of the town manager. It's not a case of overreach. So there's no hidden agendas. It's not about inhibiting development. It's all about preserving, protecting, and honoring Amherst's unique historical and architectural heritage. And existing zoning, including ADUs by right, are still in effect. So I just wanted to let that go. And also the other thing that I wanted to mention is that this area is the gateway to our brand new elementary school. So I also think that makes it very important that we preserve this area. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Steve. So I think this is a good time for us to just open this up to questions, and you can ask questions, especially of Chris, who's the most knowledgeable person here about this area, but to any of us about how this would work. So if you have a question, you can indicate that to us. Lyle Dennett?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I have 2 questions. I think my first one is my understanding is that in general, home property owners can exercise demolition by neglect. Nobody's required to upkeep their properties. And if that's correct, I'm wondering, is there anything in a local historic district rules that's different regarding that issue?
It's an excellent question. Steve, do you have an answer?
Yeah, unlike most towns in the Commonwealth, we don't have a demolition by neglect bylaw. But when I was on the historical commission, I drafted the language which would deal with that, which has been submitted to the planning board, and so it's something that we're thinking about.
Does that mean that there could be rules limiting?
Yes.
Or make, I don't know how that would work in practice, but somehow saving properties from demolition by neglect? Is that possible?
Yes. Right now, we don't have any provisions that prevent, people letting their properties fall apart. And by doing so, have them be in such a state they can be demolished. But as I said, in most other towns in the Commonwealth, they do have a demolition by neglect bylaw and provisions which would prevent and penalize that. And that's something that personally I've been trying to, champion. But there's so many other things going on that it hasn't gotten a lot of traction. But it has been discussed and is in the works.
And that would pertain just to the whole town in general. There's nothing specific to a local historic district about that, correct?
Yeah, demolition by neglect would be townwide.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But if such a property were in the local historic district, the commission would have some control over what replaced that if a building were taken down. So it does give some power to maintaining the community.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Andrew DeServa?
Nancy, Lyle said he had two questions and I only heard one.
Well, did you have another question?
Should I wait for the other gentleman?
I think he's actually he's turned off his mic. I think you can go ahead, Andrew.
Okay, great. I'm the owner of the property at 10 and 12 Northeast Street. And I've owned it since I think 2013. And my larger experience really was because it's a duplex unit. I don't know how long it's been a rental. Maybe Chris figured that out in his research. But in any case, to me, it seems like it's been somewhere north of 70 years. And my experience has been that it's not necessarily neglect like the last gentleman mentioned, but it was the cheapest fix possible for the number of generations. And my concern about that is because this is not an affluent neighborhood. It's if you look at the environmental justice zones, this is one of them, largely based on either the demographics and income. And so I think a lot of the properties that you're looking at here are actually rentals and have been for some time. So the idea, and maybe there's a confluence of what I think our goals ought to be. But if you want these to be owner occupied, if you want to have owners that really care about them as historical structures, not just as investment properties, I'm concerned about making that process of picking up these houses and making them, bring them up to speed. It's going to become it's just a whole lot more onerous, frankly. Like I said, I've owned the place since 2013. It's been a real journey, and I'm still working on it. And I've spent more on upgrades than I did on the actual original purchase itself. So, I'd like to see the historical commission, if this is indeed in our future, look at ways at helping people like myself, if you will. It won't help me necessarily, but the idea that, when you have families coming into these properties and they're trying to bring them up, they have so many things that they need to overcome, whether it's lead abatement, asbestos, you mentioned that. I've seen it all, and it's not getting cheaper. It's not getting easier. There were programs that I found out a little bit too late. I'll get the lead out, where the state would you would have a loan. I think they paid the interest that you would never have to make payments on that until you either refinanced or sold your house. Just things that make it easier for people to come in here and own these places, because it's not that hard. If you look at some of these properties, you can see the lead paint right from the sidewalk. As you mentioned, it's going to be right next to the Fort River School. It is a public hazard. I would be a lot more comfortable if we had a focus on that, as opposed to what to me really comes across as aesthetics. So my 2 cents. I guess I'd follow-up question there for Chris. It'd be interesting to see your research published, or if it is published, is that something you could share with us today?
Research for what?
Your research, your presentation there. You said that you upgrade a lot of documentation. Like.
Okay, yeah. So there was 2 things that would come out of that. One are the inventory forms that were done. I'm not sure how Amherst is going to distribute those right now,
I
but
didn't
those
notice
are
them in my property card. Is that something that's forthcoming?
No, it wouldn't be attached to your assessor card. The other thing was there's a study report that was done for the East Amherst.
Mhm.
So that would be available. I don't know if the district commission has that on their website right now.
No, I was checking the website as you were speaking, so mine hasn't changed. So
Well,
Okay, I think Bruce had an answer also to this question.
No, no, not an answer. Just to Andrew, we have to make sure that you and everybody, including us, understands that we're not the historic commission, we're the local historic district commission. And so the historic commission is not so much involved in this. Secondly, so far as the concerns or relevance of owner occupancies, things like that, is we're blind to those kind of considerations. Uh, so we recognize that there is a lot of work that's being done, and in fact, this is true in the other two districts, and we um, uh, sit and make judgments, but also make supportive comments more generally about how those renovating interventions can take place consistent with the goals of the design guidelines associated with the district. So we're trying to help preserve the character of the district, but often the renovation and preservation work that's happening is happening kind of in conjunction with that, oftentimes under our radar because it's not sufficiently it doesn't rise to the need for requesting a certificate of appropriateness. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Um, so all of your concerns or your comments and so forth are happening much of it is happening in the background, I think, and what we're proposing here is a layer that helps the parts of that are significant that are done as best as possible to preserve the historic character.
Nicole, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that we aren't going to be approaching or making recommendations for a house to be updated or become more historical or to make changes. It is when the homeowner is doing renovations, that can be seen by the sidewalk, that they come and present those and we make recommendations which may be more congruent with the neighborhood or the historic aspect of that house. So it's not, sometimes I think people think that we're going to be needing people to do additional things to make the house look more historic or something like that. And that's not additional kind of implications that we bring upon homeowners. I don't know if that helps.
Steve, did you have something you wanted to say
Couple
also?
things. First of all, there's something called a certificate of hardship, which I'll read you what that is. A certificate of hardship is issued when construction or alteration is deemed inappropriate. Yet the commission has determined that denial of a certificate will constitute a hardship, financial or otherwise, on the property owner. So, if people come and they say they just can't afford, we can grant a certificate of hardship. But in addition, in this particular district, two properties I know offhand have applied for CPA grants and have been given them. The synagogue, I think, was given a grant of over $300,000 to repair the spire.
That's right.
And then I think the Conklin House was given a grant from the CPA of $150,000, which they haven't actually used yet. So there are avenues, that this won't be onerous. I hope that addresses some of your concerns.
Let me just follow up. Largely, when I talk about some of the cost here, I'm thinking about it as a young family or as a family that is getting started, and frankly, probably taking on more than they can chew. And so when I talk about things like lead abatement and the rest, I mean, those are the first things that I think about when I look at properties like this and whether I have the energy or the resources, frankly, to address that. And if there are programs and the like, and maybe the local commission, this is the wrong team to look at this. But I would like to see that included, things like that, because really honestly, most people, those are the things that they need to address first. Those are the things that are um, really economically out of a lot of people's reach. I know it's very, very expensive for me to address some of these things. And I'm very fortunate that I was able to do that. But 10 years ago, I wasn't in that place. So I'd like to see a consideration for that sort of initiative, however that may be possible. But thank you for your feedback.
Thank you, Andrew.
Can I respond to that again?
Yeah.
The lead abatement is not covered under the purview of the local historic commission. That would be probably something with the building commission. That's a health thing that has nothing to do with what we do. And we actually don't even deal with anything that's internal. We just deal with external things that you can see from a public way. The other thing I forgot to mention is the incredible research that Chris has done has been submitted to the Massachusetts Historical Commission, and they've endorsed the creation of this district, subject to the town council approving it. But what they'll do, if you go to the MHC and look up your card, the new research that Chris has done should be there, or if it's not there yet, it should be very soon.
Nicole, did you have something more you wanted to say? Okay. Janet McGowan is attending and would like to ask a question. Janet?
Hi, my name is Janet McGowan. I live on Southeast Street. I live in a building that was a brick building built around 1800. I also own a two-family house that's from the Victorian era. So I'm very sympathetic to Mr. I would just call him Steve's comments about the expense of keeping up old buildings. And you make a lot of choices, and also you deal with a lot of really bad choices people have made, kind of cheaping it out too. I just wanted to make comments mostly in support for this district. East Amherst is filled with interesting buildings, and I've always wondered about it because you look at some of the buildings, you realize how old they are. I think the local historic district is a great idea. Historic buildings and neighborhoods create a sense of place that people want to live in and visit. The old buildings and the neighborhoods tell a story, and it's not just a story about, the founders of Amherst, but it's also how they lived in their neighborhoods and how these buildings have changed use over time. And so when you lose the buildings, you lose the stories. And so I also think that, there's a sense of beauty to old towns that have kept their, older buildings. It doesn't prevent changes from happening or new buildings coming in. I think also a local historic district might prevent landlords from running old homes into the ground, kind of running them for rents, which I was on the planning board, and several times, there've been some older houses that have just been, they're lovely and small, but they were really just kind of let go. And, either someone was, the consideration was to tear it down. And so if you knew it would sort of give landlords an incentive to maintain their buildings, I think, because they'll care for them, they'll invest in them. And if they let the place go, or try to put up a new building, they're going to have to build something probably more expensive, but similarly good looking. The local historic district allows for change and development with a guiding hand. And in America, we sort of don't have that guiding hand very often, but you can see how effective the local historic district has been in other parts of Amherst. And so I welcome this one in East Amherst where I live, but also I take a look at South Common sometime, which is another beautiful area that could use, some protection too. So I appreciate your efforts. I appreciate the history. I love reading about old buildings. I live in one. People who come to visit me are always asking questions about it. I ponder what it's like to live in a house without, any plumbing or electricity and just a fireplace because I live in that house. And I think there's something really important about keeping these areas and neighborhoods and buildings intact too, and yet also making kind of, you know, kind of allowing change too. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Janet. Lau, did you have something more that you wanted to say?
I'm not sure why you couldn't hear me before, but I'll try again. Pardon me. Just to second what Janet McGowan said, yeah, I'm in support of this district. I think I've known about this area for a long time and think this is good protection, potential protection. But I'm also very sympathetic to, the concerns raised by Mr. De Siervo, if I'm getting that pronunciation right. Because I know it's not the purview of this group, but just to raise that as I think a need that would be a really good resource for homeowners to potentially be able to draw on knowledge and resources that might be available if they're willing to, if they're interested in keeping their properties up, to be able to help them because it does benefit all of us. And I know that's not your job, but just bringing that up. But the other question that I wanted to ask was, according to the website, the town website and the agenda, it looked like you were going to be discussing proposed guidelines for property owners in the district.
Yes, that's
Um,
correct.
Is that's this evening? Is that something still coming up?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
Actually, if there are no other questions from our attendees, then maybe we could turn to those guidelines. And Chris, would you like to speak to the guidelines?
Sure. Yeah, as a panelist, I'm not sure if I get to raise my hand. So I was going to raise my hand earlier, but I couldn't figure out how to raise
At
my
the
hand.
bottom, Chris.
Yeah, I don't know if I can do that as a panelist though.
You
There's,
should
Oh,
be
okay.
able to.
I I don't see a spot as a panelist. But anyway, the other kind of certificate that's out there is a certificate of non-applicability. So routine maintenance is actually exempt under state law. So in local historic districts, if you're proposing a change that is defined as routine maintenance, that's not going to be reviewed by the district commission either. So that covers a lot of things that people want to just do basic maintenance on their property. It's not going to be reviewed. Okay. Yeah. So we can switch over to the design guidelines. I do have a few slides if we wanted to go over those as well. Okay. So I just put together a few slides just to give a bit general background to what design guidelines are. So this is the second project that I'm contracted with for Amherst is to put together a set of local historic district design guidelines. So these are for the existing two local historic districts, and if East Amherst becomes a local historic district, it would be applied to that district as well. So the two districts that it would apply to right now are the Dickinson Local Historic District over on Main Street, and then the North Prospect Lincoln Sunset Local Historic District, the larger district on the other side of North Pleasant Street. And the idea of design guidelines is that they really provide a clear explanation of the process and importantly, a clear explanation of what is likely to be approved by the Historic District Commission and what is likely to be not approved by the Historic District Commission. So it really makes that process a lot more transparent, provides that clarity. The idea is that design guidelines are there to make the process a whole lot easier to understand. So the idea is that everybody uses the design guidelines. So any applicant that's going to build something new, make a major change to the exterior of a property, um, uh, uh, is going to look at these design guidelines and get a sense of what the district commission is likely to approve, what they're likely not to approve, how they go about deciding what changes are acceptable to the district. So applicants, property owners, contractors, developers, all going to use these design guidelines. Staff within the town that provide assistance to the Historic District Commission would also use these guidelines. And then you, the members of the Historic District Commission, definitely use the design guidelines as well. In fact, every decision of the Historic District Commission should go back to those design guidelines that you're going to base every one of your decisions on having a set of design guidelines in front of you. So they're a great idea because they really help put everybody on the same page. Applicants, property owners, and district commission all looking at the same document. They are common around the country, around the state. So lots of places have design guidelines. And so they've been around for decades. And certainly always recommended that district commissions have design guidelines. So I would say that you in Amherst definitely need design guidelines right now as well. So you don't have any design guidelines available to you at this point, and that really makes things challenging for applicants, property owners, contractors, developers to understand what's have to be approved within the historic district. So makes it challenging for the applicants and property owners, but also makes it challenging for the district commission because you don't have a document in front of you to be able to explain why you're really recommending a different strategy than what's in front of you, things like that. So that clarity, that consistency, that transparency to the process, all really part of the design guidelines document. I'm recommending a design guidelines document that actually has a little bit more than just design guidelines within it. So this would be my outline for what the design guidelines document would look like. There would be an introduction, which would just have the basics of things like what a local historic district is, how that process works, maybe a little bit about the history of the town, a little bit about the history of when those local historic districts were established, things like that. And then a section about the local historic districts themselves, where we talk about the architectural styles that are found in the district, the character defining features, what makes those districts special. And then the next section would be the design review process. So this is really before you even get into the design guidelines themselves, in nice plain English, explaining how that design review process works, so that you've got things that how those applications work. We talked about certificates a little while ago, how all those certificates of appropriateness, hardships, non-applicability, how all those things work, how that public hearing process works at times, what kinds of things are reviewed by the district commission, and all the things that are exempt from review, like maintenance, or things that are not visible from the public way, things like that. So it covers all those aspects of the process. We're going to have a flow chart, so a nice one pager to explain how that process works. And then we get into the design guidelines after that. And the way the design guidelines are going to work is that it's in alphabetical order. It's going to start off with things like accessibility, and architectural barriers, and then I'm going to run down the list of things here. At least largely anyway. Additions, we're going to cover alternative materials, art installations, awnings, chimneys, cornices, decks, demolition, doors, dormers, driveways, fences, foundations, gutters, and so on. Uh, and so it's really meant to be a document that you as an applicant, property owner, can quickly open up this set of design guidelines and quickly know which page to turn to because you're doing an addition, you want to use an alternative material, you're making a change to a doorway, all those kind of things. The idea is that you can quickly turn to the page that's going to be applicable to the project that you're proposing. And there'll probably be a few appendices as well. Certainly, we're going to have a map of the districts there. We're going to have the bylaw itself, so you can quickly understand the law. So the local law in terms of how the local historic districts legislatively is done. We're going to have some other things, probably a glossary of terms, things like that. Be some other things in the appendix, but that's the basic outline of what the design guidelines document is going to look like. So it's under development right now. It's coming along, and at this point in the process, it's really about really trying to seek what people would like to see within this document. What would you like to see within the design guidelines that would make the process easier for you? And I asked that question to the Historic District Commission. What would you most like to have within the design guidelines? But I also asked that question for any of the property owners, applicants that are out there in the audience today. What would you like to see within these design guidelines that would make the process easier for you as an applicant as well? So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Nancy.
Okay, thank you for that great summary. Chris has done a fabulous job in drawing up these guidelines so far, and I think people are going to find it much easier to think about any changes they want to make to their house, both owners, developers, and also the commission in making decisions. So I'm very pleased about the way this is going. Bruce, you have a question?
It's just a small clarification, or not even a clarification, explanation on something that Chris said, which was these are certainly going to be helpful to us as the commissioners. But it's probably worth mentioning that it's not as though without these we have nothing to refer to. What we have to refer to is the foundational documents, the rules and regulations, and they're rather boilerplate-ish. I mean, it's not that there's nothing there, but what is there is fairly legalistic and has fairly large space for interpretation and so forth. So what these will do is to save us from having to have our rules and regulations as the only basis on which we can make these determinations. It's going to make it a lot easier from that. But it wasn't as though right now and before this we were imposing our own dreamed up personal values. That was not so much the case. I just want to be clear about that because sometimes folks think that town boards and so forth are fairly arbitrary, and we're not so much arbitrary as struggling, and this is going to make the struggle easier and it's going to make it clearer for everybody, as Chris has said.
Thank you. Questions or comments from either the commission or our attendees?
I guess a question for clarification with Chris. I know you pulled other guidelines, examples from other towns, and then you took our rules and regulations and bylaws. How much really has been added in new guidelines or new parameters versus what is already in our rules and regs? And I know it's been worded much more easily to read by everybody. So I guess I'm asking for that clarification as to like if new materials were necessarily added to it, or it is just rephrasing what was already there so it's easier for everybody.
I think you're going to see this to be substantially more than what you have in your rules and regulations document.
It's much more detailed and it's just
It's,
easier to access.
I mean, it's 108 pages now. It's incredible. I mean, he has a history of development of Amherst. I mean, it's very particular. It's very specific to Amherst. I was actually really taken, really impressed by that. How much work you've done. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, both Steve and I have taken a look at it, and we're both very, very pleased with what we've seen. Hilda Greenbaum has a question or a comment.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, because I've been having a lot of problems with my iPad connecting with Town of Amherst Zoom. Most of us wouldn't be here tonight if we didn't think this was a terrific idea. But what I'm specifically want to make a plea that this be a book like the zoning bylaw that people could go and buy in town hall rather than as web pages on the website, because the Amherst website is the worst ever to try to use and find anything. So I'm hoping, please have it printed, especially these beautiful colors, if it's possible. But we need at best black and white if you can't do color, so that people have it in their hands and can read it, because if it's online, forget about it. Literally. I'm, but the zoning bylaw, I can't even use that online. Try to go through 90 pages to find the one that you want to find, and having the $10 book makes it so much easier. That's my plea for tonight. And I'm here so I can try to find something to put in the Indy.
Okay, thank you. Bruce.
Yes, I'd like to follow up, Hilda. I share your interest in getting away from having to find something that is uploaded online, and so you're actually looking at the whole thing as a part of a web page. But what about a downloadable PDF? Because I can see that this is, well, it's colorful, necessarily colorful, I think, imagery that it would be rather expensive to publish. But a PDF can be very quickly downloaded, and I think fairly easily. So you're a little older than me, but we're both, around or above 80 years of age. And I still find that PDFs are a useful thing, and they free me from having to navigate things online. If I can just find the place where the PDF is, or I can call up somebody in town hall and they can attach it to an email that I can then open on my own computer, and it's all completely available to me in my own electronic domain. Would that be satisfactory to you? Could you manage that?
No, I'm not being recognized, but my answer is no.
Okay.
I've been on computers, let me tell you, since I entered graduate school in 1958.
Yeah.
I've been, and that, there's more in a little telephone than used to fill 3 rooms at Columbia.
Yes.
And I'm totally flummoxed. I cannot use my iPad to get into this meeting from town hall. It won't work.
Yes.
So
Well,
I had you on my phone for a while, and I got my Mac Air, which I had to buy because the PC is so messed up with all the stuff that keeps downloading from Microsoft that I don't even want. And I say, don't do it. And it
that's another
takes
problem.
me half an hour to get that PC to work.
Yes, that's another problem. I mean, PDFs have been around for 30 years. So to that extent, well, although they're electronic, they're rather
It's
primitive
expensive to print
electronic.
it out, though. I mean, I think it's cheaper for the town to print it out and sell it than it is to download all these pages.
I think
That's
that
I just wanted
modern,
to just wanted a reaction, Hilda, because uh, so that there's a case for a printed document regardless of the availability of PDFs.
yeah, it is possible to create a PDF that's linked with an index that's linkable, and it's very easy then to jump to whatever you're actually trying to look for. And it would be ideal to have that available as well online somewhere. So maybe we can see about getting that set up. Lyle, you had a comment?
Yes, thanks. Yeah, I think I mean the idea of the design guidelines sounds great. In terms of being able to provide any useful comment, I can't. I thought maybe we would be seeing some of the specifics tonight. So I don't really have much to offer, but I think it would be, will it be possible for the general public to see this and at some point make comments, useful comments?
It'll certainly be possible for you to see it, hopefully before it's in its final form. But
Yeah.
we'll have to discuss that.
I mean, otherwise comments, they don't really mean much. So what kind of guidelines is it? What what would you be offering homeowners? Is it like a breakdown of the architectural styles of their various properties and or what does it entail? What does it comprise?
Chris, could
Yep.
you give us some examples? For example, what does it say under um, windows or chimneys or something? Just an example so that Lyle can understand.
Sure. Uh, and going back to his comment, in terms of wanting to see them, certainly encourage some sort of process that once the guidelines are in a draft form, that there is a process to make sure everyone gets a chance to see them before they are approved. Would certainly be an excellent idea. They're not there yet. I feel like there's still some holes in the guidelines. I've been working on them, but they're definitely not in a draft form yet where they're ready to be uh, sent out for a public comment period or anything like that yet. And I really wanted to make sure that we had a meeting like this where we could really hear from applicants, property owners before I really put together a draft anyway. So that it makes sense to it made sense to hear everybody's thoughts ahead of time before we come up with a draft. Okay. Okay. So what kind of things would be in design guidelines for more language? I have it broken down, say, by windows, and then broken down again by if you're going to repair a window. These are the things that might be acceptable. These things would not be acceptable. It'd be see things in there in terms of recommending repair whenever possible. So discouraging replacement of full windows, things like that. You're going to see things about the window trim. You're going to see things about if you are going to replace a window, that window should still be the same size. It shouldn't be reduced in size. That the trim should still be there. If there's other ornamentation that's around the window, that should not be removed. Um, let's see what other kinds of things. The other thing on windows. What if you wanted to put a window in where one isn't right now? It would talk about if you're going to add an additional window, a new window, that's best if that's not done on the facade. That the windows, the current pattern of windows and doorways on the facade remains the same, but windows in other locations might be more possible if you wanted to add more windows. It would talk about if you're going to do replacement windows, the idea of really having something that replicates the original wood windows closer. I don't know, anything else I can keep going with that if you'd like. If you want more detail in that, I can keep going.
I think that's helpful. It gives a sense of the kinds of things that you're including.
Okay.
Steve, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, Chris did an incredible job for Fairfield, Connecticut. That's what we use as when he was submitting his bid. That's what we use as a sample. And I'm sure if you go to Fairfield, Connecticut, you can see, it's pretty encyclopedic what he's done, and it's very user friendly. There's lots of illustrations and diagrams. But if you're, really eager to see what it's going to be like, you can go to the Fairfield, Connecticut website, and I'm sure it's posted there.
That's a good suggestion. Thank you. Susanna, you would like to say something?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just a couple of comments. First of all, the good thing about having this be a document that starts out online and somehow gets turned into a PDF or whatever for you to print out is that there are bound to be other subjects that come up, even though we try very hard to catch everything in the original. But, over time, other questions are going to arise. And it's a lot easier to do that online than to have different editions of a book. And you don't know if the book you have is a current book or not. Second thing, having worked a bit on the North Prospect Lincoln Sunset District, I'm aware that there are certain things that are exempted from consideration by the local historic district. And I think it would be helpful to all those possible users to talk about those things as well. I mean, have them be in the index. It's things like, I believe, landscaping. They don't regulate what you can plant in your yard and things like that. And because those are the questions that homeowners are going to have right away. Buy a house, you want to change the planting, so you're going to have to go through a big process. Those are my comments. But I'm so glad you're doing this. I think that'll be helpful. And I really look forward to having another local historic district in town.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Enough.
Chris has included things that are not
Okay, good.
his guidelines.
Yeah, so on the landscaping, the shrubs and things like that, I could say there is a section in the guidelines on landscaping. Even though landscaping is going to be is under state law is basically exempt from review. If you're talking about live trees and shrubs, that's exempt from review within a local historic district. But that doesn't mean we can't have some of those things mentioned within the guidelines. So there's a little
Sure.
section within each of the categories called things to consider. And that might just have some things in there about good approaches, best practices, things like that, even though the district commission might not actually have a review.
Well, I think that's good. I think air conditioning was another one of those things. But, to say to people, well, think twice before you put a window air conditioner in your front facade is good guidance, even though it may not technically be subject to LHD review. I believe that's one of those exemptions.
Yep, usually is.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hetty,
Thank you, Nancy. I have a little bit of a problem with internet connection where I'm zooming in from at the moment. So I hope that's okay and that you can all hear me. And I just want to thank Chris for all his work on this and for the District Commission for making it possible for us to know so much more than we did before about East Amherst. Because when I went to look and write about say the school building, all I had was Form B, on Macros maps, and there isn't, a whole lot that is there. So I welcome both the formation of the local district commission and also the guidelines that would follow on from that. And I just want to endorse what Steve and Janet and Susanna have said in their comments tonight about where you're all headed with this project. So thanks for letting me participate.
Thank you.
Chris, when do you think the new Form Bs will be posted on Macros?
I can't speak for MHC. Sometimes it takes a little while for them to have the capacity because certain times a year, hundreds of those forms come in all at the same time from other places around the state. So I don't know. I'd say contact them directly to get a sense of when if they're not up already, when they would go up.
I think that brings to a close the questions or comments that people have brought to this meeting. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Any of our panelists? Should we have a motion to close this meeting? Rita.
Yeah.
I was just going to comment that I wanted to thank Chris and Steve and Nancy for all the work you've done for the presentation and all the work behind it.
Well, Steve's done a terrific job, and as has, I think both Chris and Steve get a lot of credit. Walker, who has also done a lot of work for this. Would you like to speak?
I just wanted to say before we adjourn, perhaps we should discuss what the next steps are for the design guideline and if we're going to have another meeting scheduled.
Okay. And so I think we're waiting for a draft from Chris for the commission to begin to make comments.
Can we take the stop the screen square?
Sure.
So is that the next step to get a draft from Chris?
So I'd say the next step would be for me to send you a draft. I think I just need to probably have some more questions, discussion with Steve and Walker and Nancy. But yeah, I think a draft within the next couple of weeks is certainly possible. And then it's up to you to think about how you would like to distribute that from there for additional comment from commission members and the public from there.
Okay.
And then it's really thinking about what comes back for comments, having a larger comment period there, what comes back for comments and how we synthesize those, incorporate comments in. And then we can start thinking about what those final design guidelines look like after that.
Good.
And as far as the East Amherst study, I'll think about the comments we got tonight. I'll take another look at MHC's comments and any other comments that I've received and make any revisions that seem appropriate. And I'll send you all out another draft of that because the next step after this is town council. So I want to make sure that we're all on the same page and make sure that the draft is as ready as it's going to be before it goes out to town council.
Sounds good.
Yep. Officially, it was a preliminary study report that goes to MHC, and then it'll get switched to a final study report once we'll put your comments in.
Do you want to set a date for the next meeting, Walker?
There is going to be a project coming, but they haven't completed their application yet. So I think we're safe to say a February meeting, maybe the 2nd or the 9th.
I can do the 2nd. I can't do the 9th.
Okay. How does the 2nd sound, everybody else? Usual 3 p.m. time.
Works for me.
Okay. All right, I'll plan on that. I'll email out a reminder, calendar reminder and whatnot, and if something comes up, let me know. But I'll plan on that for now.
Okay.
Great.
All right, that's all I had.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion.
Thank you. Give a second.
Second.
Thank you, Rita. All in favor of adjourning? Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone, and thank you especially Chris and Steve.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Well,
Bye-bye.
thank you. Thank you for all of your input so far. Look forward to working with you more on it.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
I
Great.
did
Thanks again,
hear,
Chris. Take
I
care.
heard yesterday somebody suggested Amity Street should be in our local historic district, that whole Amity. So just
We'll just
thoughts.
keep adding houses.
Yes.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Good night, everyone.